Adam and Eve. In the beginning, darkness was everywhere. The earth was formless and it was covered with water. The Spirit of God was moving over the water. Then God spoke, "Let there be light." He made light and called it day. God then made darkness to separate it from light, and He called it night. Evening passed and morning came. This happened on the first day of creation. God then made a dome and called it sky. It separated the water under it from the water above it. Evening passed and morning came. This was the second day. By the sweet will of God, all the water below the sky came together and land appeared. He called the land earth and the water sea. Let the earth produce all kinds of plants, bearing grain and fruit. God commanded, and it was done. This was the third day. Then God made the sun to shine during the day and the moon to shine at night. He also made the stars. He then placed them all in the sky. All this happened on the fourth day. On the fifth day of creation, God filled up the seas and the rivers with living creatures of all kinds. From the great whales to the smallest fish, from corals, sponges, octopuses to jellyfish, God made them all. Then He filled up the air with birds of all kinds. On the sixth day of creation, God commanded, "Let the earth produce all kinds of living creatures, the wild animals, the cattle, and everything that crawl upon the ground." And it was done. Life blossomed everywhere. God then took some soil from the ground and formed a man in His own image. He breathed life into him, and the man began to live. God called him Adam. God planted a garden full of delicious fruits for Adam and called it the Garden of Eden. In the middle of the garden, God placed the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God then put Adam into a deep sleep and removed one of his ribs. God formed a woman from Adam's rib and called her Eve. Adam was full of joy. He exclaimed, "At last, here is one of my own kind, bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh. Woman is her name, because she was taken out of man." God blessed them, and that is how the universe was created. Both Adam and Eve lived happily in the Garden of Eden. They were naked but were not ashamed. God said to Adam and Eve, "You may eat the fruit of any tree in the garden, except of the tree that gives knowledge of good and evil. The day you eat its fruit, you will die." One day, a snake came up to Eve and asked, "Did God tell you not to eat the fruit from any tree in the garden?" "We may eat the fruit of any tree in the garden, except of the tree in the middle of it. If we eat it, we will die," Eve replied. The snake said, "You will not die. The day you eat the fruit of that tree, you will become as wise as God." Eve thought it would be good to be wise. So she picked a fruit of the tree, tasted it, and handed it to Adam to eat. As soon as they ate the fruit, Adam and Eve realized that they were naked. They rushed to pick fig leaves and made something out of them to cover themselves. When God visited the garden that evening, Adam and Eve hid behind the trees. God knew what they had done. He asked, "Did you eat the fruit that I told you not to eat?" Adam said, "Eve gave me the fruit." Eve said, "The snake tricked me into eating it." God turned to the snake in anger and said, "You will crawl on your belly and eat dust as long as you live." Then he condemned Eve to feel pain while having children, and Adam to earn his living from tilling the soil. You will have to work hard to make the soil produce anything until you go back to the soil from which you were formed, God declared. Lastly, God condemned Adam and Eve to be mortal. He covered their nakedness with animal skins and drove them out from the Garden of Eden. Then he placed an angel with a flaming sword at the gates of Eden to keep Adam and Eve from returning. Noah's Ark. People multiplied on the earth, but they did not live in peace together. Men were hurting one another. God saw how wicked everyone had become, and this caused him a lot of pain. Disappointed, God decided to wipe out all the people, animals, and birds from the world. "I will wipe out all living creatures from the earth." God's purpose was to eliminate wickedness by destroying his creation. Before he could take such a drastic step, God realized that at least one good man existed on the earth. He was named Noah. He had 3 sons, namely Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Noah and his family worked hard on land and lived in peace. God said to Noah, "I have decided to remove every living creature from the earth because they are full of malice. I will send a great flood to destroy everything. If you listen to my words, you and your loved ones will be saved." God further instructed Noah, "Build a large and strong boat, an ark with good timber. Make rooms in it and cover it with tar inside and out. Build it with 3 decks, a roof on top, and a door in the side." Noah's 3 sons immediately started cutting the trees for it. God continued, "Go into the boat with your family. Take with you a male and a female of every kind of animal and bird to save them as well. Take along all kinds of food for yourself and for them." Noah did everything that God commanded. It took a lot of time to build such a big ark. People wondered what Noah's family was doing, as there was no water for the big boat to sail upon. They mocked and laughed at Noah and his family. Noah told the people about the coming flood and what God was going to do. But none believed him. They kept on mocking him. At last, the ark was completed. It stood like a great house on land. Upon God's command, Noah moved into the ark with his wife and sons and their wives. Then followed a long line of animals. A male and a female of every kind of living being went into the boat with Noah. Once everyone was in, God shut the door of the ark. After 7 days, God put into practice his plan, just as he promised. Lightning struck and dark clouds rumbled. It began to rain on the earth. It continued for 40 days and 40 nights without stopping. The water started rising till it totally surrounded the ark, lifting it up. The ark floated. The water continued to rise in a frightening way, covering everything. God destroyed every living being on the earth, as promised. Only Noah's ark continued to float on the water. Then finally, the waves calmed down and the water began to subside. The peaks of the mountains resurfaced. The ark came to rest on a mountain in the Ararat range. Noah sent out a raven. The raven did not come back, but kept flying around, waiting for the water to subside. So, Noah sent out a dove. It did not find a dry place to alight, as the water still covered all the land. It returned. Noah waited for 7 days and sent out the dove again. This time, the dove returned in the evening with a fresh sprig of olive in its beak. So, Noah knew that the water had gone down. After another 7 days, Noah sent out the dove once more. This time, it did not return because it had finally found a place to rest. God then said to Noah, "Go out of the ark with your family. Have many children so that your descendants may live all over the earth. Take all the animals and the birds with you so that they may reproduce and spread all over the earth. I promise there will not be any other flood." A rainbow appeared in the sky as a sign of the covenant between God and mankind. Noah and his family did as God had commanded. Noah lived for a long time. The sons of his sons spread all over the earth. The Tower of Babel. After the flood, Noah's sons and their wives had many children. Just as the Lord had told them to do, their families grew and they began to spread to different parts of the earth. Now, there was a great number of Noah's descendants, and all of them were speaking the same language. As they moved eastward, they found a fertile plain in Babylon and settled there. Now, They did not want to roam place to place. So, they decided to make a city for themselves to live in. They learned making hard and strong bricks by baking them carefully. Off they went to build a great city anyone had ever built, using strong bricks and tar. They worked really hard to make such a magnificent city. After some time, the city was completed. People were so happy as the city they had built was beautiful. They admired themselves. We have built a great city, and now we have a home to live in. We don't have to wander here and there. But we must not stop here. Come, let us build ourselves a tower whose top will reach into the heavens, so that we may make for ourselves a name in the world for building the biggest and best tower ever, said the people with great pride. The people decided that the tower would be so high that people could see it from miles away. They wanted to make something that would draw people from faraway places to see and admire it. Actually, they wanted everyone to know how great they were. So, they set about working right away. Together, people began making the bricks and baking them to make them so hard and strong in order to build the tower. Brick upon brick, higher and higher, they were building the tower. Bragging and boasting about their work, they continued building the tower for some time. As they wanted to build the tower so high that it would reach the sky, they named it the Tower of Babel. Babel means gateway to God. Now, God saw that people's heart were more focused on themselves and the tower instead of God. They were so busy building a name for themselves, they no longer had any time for God. God was watching everything that was happening all along. Then God came down to the earth to see the city and the tower the people were building. He saw how people were working together to make such proud plans. God was very disappointed and annoyed with them. I see. The people think that together they can do anything because they all speak the same language, wondered God. But this isn't right. They have already begun to turn away from me, and soon there won't be anything good left. All they'll do is sin. Every great thing they do, they will think that they are even greater, and there will be no end to the trouble that will bring about. I will have to put a stop to this right now, God observed. Let us mix up their language to confuse them, so they will not understand one another. And right then, God mixed up their language, and people began to confuse as they started calling things by different names. People wondered that 1 minute ago they could understand one another perfectly, and the very next minute they couldn't understand a single word of what the other person was saying. Now, whatever they were saying was making no sense. It all sounded like a bunch of babbling. This was the reason why the city was now called Babel. Now, the people realized that they couldn't get any work done. They weren't getting along so well anymore. So, they stopped building the tower, and all the people who spoke one new language got together and moved to a new place. In this way, people speaking the same language began to move all over the earth. This was the beginning of the languages. God really hates pride and arrogance. That's why He didn't let the people accomplish their plan to make the magnificent tower that might reach the heavens. God's plans were fulfilled because the people were scattered all over the earth. Sacrifice of Isaac. God had confused the language of the people to put a stop to the Tower of Babel that they were building. Abraham was also one of them. He moved away with his wife Sarah and father Terah. He moved from the city of Ur in Babylonia due to the confusion of language and scattering of nations. After leaving Babylonia, together with their animals and servants, Abraham and his family traveled first to Haran and settled there. Abraham was a rich and righteous man who trusted God, but sadly, he had no children. One day, God spoke to him and told him to move to the land of Canaan with his family, animals, and servants. Abraham obeyed God and came to the land of Canaan with his people and settled there. It was a lush and green fertile land. The Lord again spoke to him. Look around you. All this great land belongs to you and your descendants. Oh God, I am an old man and I have no children. How shall I manage this vast land? Abraham asked God. Your wife shall give birth to a son for you, and you shall name him Isaac, God replied. And your son will have children, and his children's children, and they will multiply greatly like the dust of the earth. Finally, when Abraham was 100 years old, Sarah gave birth to a baby boy whom they named Isaac. Abraham and Sarah loved their son Isaac dearly. They took great care of him. The old couple spent a lot of time with Isaac, teaching him how to love and obey God. As Isaac grew, he learned to worship God just as his father Abraham did. Now, God saw that Abraham loved Isaac more than anything else in the whole world and would never do anything to hurt his son. So, one day, the Lord decided to test Abraham's faith in God. God spoke to him. Abraham, I want you to take your only son, whom you love so greatly, to the land of Moriah, on a mountain that I will show you. There, I want you to sacrifice your son as a burnt offering to me. God gave this strange command to Abraham, for he wanted to see if Abraham loved his son Isaac more than he loved God. Though this command filled Abraham's heart with pain, yet he had full trust in God. He placed his hand on the forehead of the sleeping Isaac. Abraham never doubted or disobeyed God. So, the very next morning, Abraham put a saddle and a bundle of wood on his donkey and set out with Isaac and his 2 servants on the way God had directed him. For 3 days they travelled, eating food they had taken with them and sleeping on the ground. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked into the distance and saw the place where God was leading him. You stay here with the donkey while Isaac and I go to worship God, Abraham said to his servants. Abraham picked up the wood from the donkey and gave it to Isaac to carry. Then Abraham took fire and a knife, and the 2 walked up the mountain together. As they were walking, Isaac said, "Father, I have the wood and you have the fire and the knife, but where is the lamb for the offering?" "My son, God will provide himself with a lamb for a burnt offering," Abraham replied. Upon reaching the spot that God had chosen, Abraham began to build an altar of stones. As Abraham arranged the wood to burn the sacrifice before God, he could not stop crying, as his heart was in great pain. Still, he went about making the preparations for the sacrifice of his son. Abraham gave one last hug to his loving son. Then he tied the hands and the feet of Isaac with rope. With a heavy heart and tears in eyes, Abraham placed his beloved son on the altar for sacrifice. He couldn't understand why he had to sacrifice his son, but he knew that he had to obey God as he trusted the Lord. Finally, Abraham took out his knife and raised it in the air to kill his son. But the very next moment, when he was about to kill his son, the angel of the Lord, out of the heavens, called out, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes, Lord," Abraham replied. "You need not sacrifice your son. Don't harm him." God's angel said again, "Now I know that you love God even more than you love your son. You are ready to give up your only son to God." The angel stopped Abraham. Listening to the angel, Abraham put down the knife and realized that there was a ram caught in the bushes. He untied his son Isaac, took the ram, put it on the altar, and offered it up for a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham and Isaac worshipped the Lord together. The angel of the Lord spoke again, "Abraham, I will bless you, and in your descendants all nations shall be blessed." Abraham gave a long hug to his son. Then 2 of them happily walked down the mountain. They met the servants at the bottom of the mountain, and all of them started their 3-day journey back home. The birth of Moses. Everything went well in Egypt for many years. The people of God, the Israelites, lived comfortably. Their number grew, and some of them became rich and important people in the society. All was going well till the time the new Pharaoh came in. he did not like the Israelites. So he made them all slaves and put them to work on the roads and making bricks. One day, he ordered to kill all the male babies who were born to Israelite women. During this time, a baby was born. His mother put him in a reed basket and set him afloat on the river to save him. The women told her daughter, Miriam, to keep a watch on the baby. Soon, the baby floated down to where the Pharaoh's daughter bathed. She was a kind woman. Seeing the baby, she decided to keep him. Miriam, who was standing nearby, suggested, "Perhaps I should bring a slave woman to nurse him." "Yes, that will be good," the Pharaoh's daughter replied. She named the baby Moses. Miriam brought her mother, and hence his own natural mother raised baby Moses. When Moses was old enough to be able to start learning, he was taken to the palace where he was taught like the other royal children. Moses grew up like a royal prince in the palace, but he never forgot his ancestors and the teachings of his mother. He could never overlook the suffering his people went through every day. When he saw that the Israelites were in pain because of the Egyptians, it caused him great anger. One day, Moses saw an Egyptian guard hitting a slave. This angered him so much that he killed the guard at once. Doing so, Moses made himself the enemy of the Pharaoh. Hence, he had to flee. He escaped into the desert of Midian, where he became a shepherd under a man named Jethro. Jethro was a holy man. Not long after he had started working under him, Moses married Jethro's daughter Zipporah. They had a son named Gershom. One day, as he was leading the sheep in the desert, Moses reached the holy mountain of Sinai. There, he came across a burning bush. It was no ordinary bush. It seemed to be on fire. Yet, it did not burn away. Curious, Moses went to take a closer look. Suddenly, a thundering voice spoke, "Don't come closer. Take off your sandals, as this is a holy ground." Moses got scared, as he could not understand what was happening. "Do not be afraid, Moses. I am the God of your ancestors. I have seen what your people are going through. I have heard their prayers, and I have decided that it is you who will lead your people to freedom. What can I do? What if they don't believe me?" asked Moses, looking puzzled. "Throw your stick on the ground," God commanded. Moses did as he was told. As soon as the stick hit the ground, it turned into a snake. Moses backed away, scared. "Pick it up by its tail. If they do not believe you, show them this magical stick of yours." "You have no reason to worry. I am with you," said God. God told Moses to go back to Egypt and tell the Pharaoh to free the slaves. So Moses took his wife and son and set off to Egypt, carrying his magical stick. The first Passover, Moses went back to Egypt as commanded by God and addressed the Pharaoh in his court. "O Pharaoh, you must free the Israelites. They are God's people." Nobody can tell me what to do. The Israelites are meant to be slaves. Who says that they are God's people? The Pharaoh laughed. After that, he made the slaves work harder than before. This angered the Israelites, who blamed Moses for making the matter worse. They told him not to interfere. Yet, Moses did not lose hope. He knew that God was with him. Moses went to the Pharaoh again. This time, he warned the Pharaoh, saying, "Pharaoh, don't be a fool. Free the Israelites, or all the people of Egypt will suffer. 9 dangerous plagues are sure to come, which will cause great harm. If you wish to prevent them, then pay heed to what I say. Free all the slaves." Moses insisted, but the Pharaoh did not listen. Soon, one after the other, the 9 plagues came. First, the river turned into blood, killing whatever fish there were and stinking up the surroundings. Next, there was a swarm of frogs. Then came the gnats, then the flies, and then diseases which killed the livestock and many people of Egypt. But the Pharaoh remained as stubborn as a mule. The next disaster was the hailstorm, which destroyed the harvest. Next were the locusts, which ate every green leaf and covered the sky till it was black. The land had been in darkness for 3 days. The people of Egypt were scared. All the plagues had caused great harm to them. They pleaded with the Pharaoh to free the slaves. Yet, the Pharaoh remained undisturbed as before. The next plague was the worst of all. The angel of death had to take the life of each firstborn child in every house in Egypt. In those firstborn babies was the Pharaoh's only son. Now, Moses was worried. In the houses were the babies of the Israelites too. He did not want any harm to come their way. "Moses, I will tell you how to save the Israelites," God assured him. "Each household is to kill a lamb and roast it. They should eat it with unleavened bread. And finally, smear some blood from the lamb on their doors. This way, the angel of death would pass by their houses," God advised. The next day, Moses instructed all the Israelites to do as suggested by God. That very night, when the clock struck 12, the 9th plague began. The angel of death passed each house, taking the lives of all the firstborn babies. But the houses which were smeared with blood were spared, just as Moses had promised. Among those firstborn babies was the Pharaoh's only son, the heir to the throne. Seeing his son dead, the Pharaoh was distraught with grief. He summoned Moses and ordered him to take all the Israelites out of Egypt immediately. Hence, after 430 years of slavery, the Israelites were finally free. About 6,000 of them took all their belongings and left Egypt with Moses and the Lord, leading them to a new lease of life. That day was known as the Passover. It is celebrated for 7 to 8 days every year in March or April by Israelites all over the world. Passover begins with a special meal that reminds the people how God helped their ancestors escape from Egypt. Crossing the Red Sea, Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. They took their belongings and their cattle with them. God went with them, guiding them onto the right path. He took them through a desert. Following God's command, the Israelites took a roundabout route through the desert. God did not want them to change their minds and return to Egypt. God went ahead of them in the form of a big pillar of cloud by the day and guided them on their way. At night, God led them in the form of a pillar of fire. It gave them light. The cloud helped shade the people from the hot desert sun during the day, and the fire helped keep them warm at night, so they could travel day and night. God took utmost care of His people. But then the trouble began. As soon as the Israelites had left Egypt, the Pharaoh realized that he didn't have slaves to do all the work the Israelites had done before they left. So he changed his mind. He commanded, "We have made a great mistake by letting all the slaves go free. We must bring them back." So the Pharaoh set out with his best men and chariots to bring the Israelites back. The Israelites had reached the Red Sea when they noticed the cloud of dust caused by the approaching soldiers. There was panic. In front of them was the sea, and behind them were the soldiers coming to kill them. They had no escape. They were on the horns of dilemma. Now, some of the Israelites were ready to fight against the Egyptians. Others preferred to get drowned in the sea than to risk defeat and a return to slavery. And the rest of the people blamed Moses. "You have tricked us. You have led us to death," they cried. "We would rather have been slaves to the Egyptian than to die here." "Why do you worry? The Lord is with us," Moses told the people. "Fear not, just stay calm. The Lord Himself will fight for you today." Then God told Moses, "Lift up your stick and hold it out over the sea." Moses followed God's command. Suddenly, strong winds parted the Red Sea to create a narrow, dry path. On each side of this path, the waters rose like high walls. The Israelites hurried along the dry path in the sea. The strong winds continued to blow through the night till all the Israelites, with their animals and other belongings, crossed over safely to the other side. Meanwhile, God started giving trouble to the Pharaoh's army. Their horses got entangled in the harnesses, and their feet began to sink in the sand. The chariot wheels came off. "Let us go back," the soldiers cried. At dawn, when all the Israelites were safe on the other side, the winds slowed down. God told Moses to stretch his hand out over the sea again. Moses followed God's command. The water went back into its place. The Egyptians, who had managed to follow the Israelites into the sea, were in for a big shock. The water rushed and covered the people and their chariots. Not a single Egyptian survived. When the people of Israel saw the great power with which the Lord had defeated the Egyptians, they were filled with awe. They now had faith in God and his servant Moses. The Israelites worshipped the Lord and sang praises to him. They happily followed Moses when he led them away from the Red Sea through another desert. Finally, led by Moses, the Israelites reached Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees. There they camped by the water. They stayed here for some time. The 10 Commandments. The Israelites reached Mount Sinai after 3 long months of traveling in the desert. They pitched their tents near the mountain and decided to stay there for a while. It was at Mount Sinai that God gave instructions to the people of Israel through Moses. At the foot of this mountain, Moses built an altar with 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he lit a fire and prayed to God. God called Moses to the top of the mountain. As Moses went up the mountain, a thick cloud covered it. The ground trembled and there was a dazzling light. To the Israelites, it looked like a fire burning on top of the mountain. God called out, "I, the Lord, am God who is full of compassion and pity, who is not easily angered, and who shows great love and faithfulness. I keep my promise for thousands of generations. Obey the laws that I will give you today, and I will protect you and your people forever." Moses had been with God for 40 days and nights. When God finished speaking, he gave Moses 2 stone tablets with the 10 commandments written on them. God had inscribed the commandments on the stone tablets with his own finger. The first tablet was about the duties of the people towards God. The second tablet had duties of the people towards one another. God made a covenant with Israelites that till the time they obeyed faithfully the 10 commandments, he too would be there for them, protecting them from all harm. Moses thanked God for his trust in him. Then, holding the 2 tablets of God's commandments, he descended from the mountain. People saw that his face had become bright and serene for having spoken with God. Moses called them and gave them God's commandments. Through the stone tablets, God said, "I am the Lord, your God, who set you free from slavery in Egypt. You will have no other gods before me." God then commanded to use his name with respect and to invoke it only if necessary. "You shall never take my name in vain," God uttered. God created the earth, the sky, the sea, and everything in them in 6 days, resting on the 7th day. He blessed and declared this day as the Sabbath. Observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. It was God's next commandment. Respect your father and your mother, so that you may live for a long time in the land that I am giving you. This was God's next commandment, expressing the importance of honoring one's parents through one's words and actions. In life, it is possible to make serious mistakes. That is why the next commandment stated, "Do not commit murder." God advised people to be good to everyone, even those who hurt them. God himself would punish their enemies. The next commandment was for those who were married. God told them to remain faithful in marriage. He wanted people to love their wives or husbands and treat them with respect. The next commandment declared, "Do not steal." God told the people that they should not take anything that did not belong to them. However strong the need might be, and however small the thing might be to fulfill it, stealing would always be wrong. The next commandment stated, "Do not accuse anyone falsely." According to God, it is always better to speak the truth. False testimony, false rumors, and gossip can ruin reputation. People should not use deception for revenge or selfish gain. The last commandment declared, "Do not desire another man's house or anything else that he owns." People should not wish to have things that others have. They must learn to appreciate whatever they have, without comparing their belongings with those of others. The Israelites promised Moses, "We will do everything that the Lord has said." The 10 Commandments are the most important teachings of the Bible. God wanted His people to follow them to lead a better and prosperous life. Samson and Delilah. The Israelites once again sinned and turned away from God. As a result, the Philistines enslaved them for 40 years. But all was not lost yet. An Israelite man called Manoah lived with his wife in the town of Zorah. Manoah and his wife were loyal to God, but they were not able to have any children. One day, an angel of God appeared before Manoah's wife and said, "You will soon have a son. He will save Israel from the Philistines. But you have to raise him like a Nazirite. He should never cut his hair, drink alcohol, or touch dead things all his life." The angel added. Manoah and his wife were grateful to be blessed. Manoah's wonderful son was named Samson. God blessed Samson with extraordinary strength. He was so strong that he could kill a lion with his bare hands and 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone. The Philistines were terrified of Samson and wanted to destroy him. They tried to capture him, but in vain. Samson was too strong to be bound in ropes and chains. Samson's trouble started when he fell in love with a Philistine girl named Delilah. When the Philistine rulers learnt about this, they offered Delilah a large amount of money to discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah was a greedy woman. She troubled Samson to tell her his secret. He kept on telling her all kinds of things, but not the real secret. The Philistines were disappointed with Delilah. Delilah now became desperate. She troubled Samson so much that he finally told her, "My strength is in my hair. As long as I don't cut it, no one can defeat me." This time, Delilah knew that Samson was telling her the truth. Delilah informed the Philistines at once. She made Samson sleep and quickly called for a barber to cut Samson's hair. Then she called out, "Samson, wake up! The Philistines are upon you." Samson awoke and realized that he had lost his strength. Samson tried to resist the Philistines as before, but he could not do so. The Philistines took hold of him. They blinded him and imprisoned him. They put Samson in chains and made him work, grinding grain in the prison. The Philistine kings celebrated with a feast to their god Dagon, praising him for delivering their enemy into their hands. During the feast, the Philistines mocked Samson even more. Time passed and Samson's hair started growing once again. One day, the Philistines held a great feast in the temple of Dagon. They ordered for Samson to be brought there. A young boy led Samson into the temple. The temple, its courtyard, as well as the roof over it, were crowded with more than 3,000 men and women. Everyone was eager to see the mighty Samson in chains. Samson was placed between two pillars. He said to the boy who had brought him, "Please put my arms around the pillars supporting this temple." The boy did so. Then Samson pleaded with the God of Israel, "O God, please strengthen me only one more time. Let me die punishing these Philistines." Holding the pillars with his outstretched arms, Samson bowed down with all his might. God graciously returned Samson's strength. The pillars supporting the temple crashed, bringing the whole building down. That day, Samson killed more people in his death than he had in his life. David and Goliath. Saul was the king of Israel, but he kept disobeying God. So, God asked Samuel to find a new king. He sent Samuel to the house of Jesse and asked Samuel to anoint one of Jesse's 8 sons. Jesse brought his 7 sons to let them meet Samuel, but God had chosen none of them. At last, he brought his youngest son, David, who was a shepherd. David believed in God so much. As soon as Samuel met David, the Lord spoke to him, "He is the right choice." So, Samuel anointed David with oil, which was a special way of promising him that he would be the next king. And from that day on, God's Spirit was always with David. Now, David continued to take care of his sheep in the fields. When he didn't have much to do, he played the harp and wrote songs and poems in the fields. Meanwhile, Saul, the king of Israelites, was struggling with the Philistines as they continued to battle with him. King Saul was not happy because he did not obey God. Now, David used to play the harp very well. When King Saul was tired of fighting in the war, his servants called David to play the harp for him to make him feel better. And it worked wonders. David's music made the king feel better. In the Philistine army, there was a terrible giant warrior named Goliath, who was 9 feet tall. He was the strongest and biggest warrior of the Philistine army. For 40 days, every morning and night, Goliath came out of his camp and challenged the Israelite army. But none dared to fight against him, as King Saul and all his men were very afraid. 3 of these men were David's 3 eldest brothers. One day, David went to the army camp to visit his brothers. When David came to the camp, he heard Goliath shouting and challenging the Israelite army, like he did every morning. David saw the great fear stirred within the Israelite soldiers. But he himself was not afraid at all, as he trusted in God. "If no one is going to oppose this giant, then I'll fight against him," David said to King Saul. At first, King Saul refused, but then David told him that God helped him kill a lion and a bear in order to protect his sheep in the fields. And God would also help him win over Goliath. King Saul let him go out and fight against Goliath. Then David collected some stones from the brook for his slingshot, and he was all set for one-on-one combat with the huge giant Goliath. On the other side, Goliath had a suit of armor, a sword, and a big shield. As David approached Goliath in the battlefield, Goliath began to laugh. He made fun of David and said that he would kill him. "You fight against me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I fight against you in the name of the Almighty Lord," David said. Goliath didn't care what David said and moved closer to attack him with his sword. David quickly pulled out a stone from his pouch. He put the stone into his slingshot and flung it at Goliath. The stone hit big Goliath right on the head. Suddenly, Goliath lost his balance and fell down. After Goliath had fallen down, David took the giant's sword and killed him. When the Philistines saw what happened with Goliath, they were so frightened that they ran away. The Israelites ran after them and won the battle. Now, David became a hero to all the people in Israel. They praised and thanked David to save Israel from the Philistines. But David said that he believed in God, and God helped him win over the giant. The judgment of Solomon. Solomon was the fourth son of King David. He was anointed king just before the death of David. When David was on his deathbed, he told his son to obey God and be a good king. Solomon was very young, and he realized that he was too inexperienced to rule over a great nation such as Israel. He had shared the love for God with his father. So, he decided to go to the holy place of Gibeon. There, he offered sacrifices to the Lord and prayed. Finally, the Lord appeared in his dream. God said, "Solomon, say what you desire. Today, I will grant you whatever you ask for." "Lord, you guided my father and showed him great mercy. Now, you have chosen me to succeed my father. I only wish for you to give me your blessing to rule over Israel with a wise heart," Solomon said. God said, "I am truly pleased. When you had the chance to ask for riches, victory over your enemies, or long life, you asked for wisdom. I will grant you your wish. You shall also have success and riches. You shall have all of this till the time you live by the 10 Commandments." Solomon turned out to be a great king. People from all over the world visited his court and paid him tributes. He was not only a good king, but also a good poet. He wrote many songs, and the skilled writers in his court recorded thousands of his clever sayings. One day, 2 women came to Solomon's court with a unique problem. "My lord, we both live in the same house, and each of us has a baby boy. One night, her baby died, so she stole my baby. As I woke up in the morning to feed the baby, I knew at once that the dead baby was not mine. And now she denies to have stolen my baby," the first woman explained. "Of course I will deny it. It is because this baby is mine. You are lying," the second woman exclaimed. King Solomon sent for his guard and said, "Take this baby and cut him into half. Give one half to each of these women." The first woman flung herself at Solomon's feet. "Please don't harm the baby. Give him to the other women," she wept. "Of course, my lord, you can cut him," This way, neither of us will have a baby and it will resolve our quarrel, the second woman said rather calmly. King Solomon smiled. Now he knew who the real mother was. Handing the baby over to the first woman, he said, "Don't cry now. Your problem has been solved." The entire Israel came to hear the story of Solomon's wise justice. Everyone knew that King Solomon was indeed blessed by the Lord himself. King David had desired to build a temple for God in Jerusalem in order to keep the sacred Ark of Covenant. Over time, he had gathered a great treasure of gold, silver, brass, and iron. But God forbade David from doing so, because he was a man of wars. God wanted a man of peace to build the temple. So, he chose David's son Solomon for the purpose. After 4 peaceful years of reign as king, Solomon decided to start building the temple of God. The most skilled craftsmen built the temple with the best of every material. Thousands of people helped build it. It took 7 years to complete the construction, and it was a sight to behold. The temple was immense and ornate, beautiful and strong. It was grander than any other palace. The day the temple was dedicated to God was a day of great celebration in Israel. Everyone was invited to the occasion. The priest placed the Ark of the Covenant inside the temple. Solomon knelt before the altar and prayed to God to bless the Israelites with his mercy and goodness forever. Daniel in the lion's den. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, conquered Israel and took all the strong young men as captives. He trained them in learning science. Daniel was also chosen for the training. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar was disturbed. He called his wise men and told them about a strange dream, which he had forgotten. He asked for the meaning of the dream. The wise men did not know what to do. "Please try to remember your dream, and only then we will tell you its meaning," they pleaded. Angry, King Nebuchadnezzar ordered them to be killed. Daniel prayed to God to reveal the dream to him, else he too would die. God showed Daniel the king's dream. So Daniel went to the king and told him, "No man can tell you about your dream, but God in heaven reveals the secrets. He has shown me your dream." Daniel said that in his dream, the king had seen a huge and bright statue with a gold head, silver chest and arms, brass stomach and thighs, iron legs and feet of iron and clay. Then a stone, which was not cut by human hands, smashed the image. Everything flew like dust in the wind. Daniel told the king further, "God has made you a mighty king. You are the gold head. After you, 2 inferior kingdoms will arise. These are the silver and brass parts of the statue. Finally, a 4th kingdom will arise as strong as iron. But it shall be broken into 2 parts, iron and clay. Some parts of the kingdom will be strong and some weak. The stone is the kingdom of God, which can never be destroyed. God wants you to know this." King Nebuchadnezzar fell before Daniel and said, "Truly, your Lord is God of all gods. He is omniscient." He gave Daniel a great position in his kingdom and many gifts. After Nebuchadnezzar, his son Belshazzar became the king of Babylon. Like his father, he also honored Daniel for his wisdom After Belshazzar's death, Darius seized the throne. King Darius appointed governors to run his empire and chose Daniel to supervise them. After some time, seeing his wisdom and loyalty, King Darius decided to make Daniel his successor. The other administrators became jealous but were unable to find any fault with Daniel. They knew that they could accuse him only in his personal time with God. So, they somehow convinced the king to pass a decree for 30 days, stating that no one should worship any god or man except King Darius. Anyone disobeying this order would be thrown into the lion's pit. Although Daniel knew about the law, he knelt beside the window that faced Jerusalem and prayed 3 times a day. The others reported Daniel's disobedience to the king. The king was very unhappy to have passed such a law. He really wanted to save Daniel. King Darius told Daniel, "Your God, whom you serve continually, will save you." But he could not change his own law. So, he finally ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's pit. That night, the king could not eat or sleep. At the break of dawn, he rushed to the lion's pit and called out sorrowfully to Daniel, "Daniel, servant of the living God, will God you serve continually save you from the lion's mouths?" Daniel replied, "My God has closed the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me. I have been innocent of any evil against you or my God." The king was very happy and ordered Daniel to be freed. Then King Darius passed another order. "I command that throughout my empire, everyone should fear and respect Daniel's God. He saves and rescues. He performs wonders and miracles in heaven and on the earth." Thanks for watching. Do like, share, subscribe to Sahil Book House.